AB 1844. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1844 by Assemblymember Fletcher, an act relating to sex crimes.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bipartisan public safety measure will better protect children from the dangers posed by violent sexual predators. AB 1844, Chelsea's Law, is named in the memory of Chelsea King. On Thursday, February 25th of this year, Chelsea King disappeared after going for a run in a San Diego park. Law enforcement and thousands of volunteers searched for many days until they found her. She had been the victim of a terrible crime. A convicted sex offender who in 2000 violently molested a 13-year-old girl has pled guilty to the rape and murder of Chelsea King and Amber Dubois, a 14-year-old San Diegan who went missing more than a year ago. While there are seemingly tough laws on the books for sex offenders, current California law does not adequately acknowledge or adjust for the true nature of the most heinous, the most violent sexual predators that attack our children. Chelsea's Law is a bipartisan attempt to isolate this uniquely dangerous predator and takes disciplined steps to keep them away from our children and out of our communities. The development of this legislation has been a collaborative effort with district attorneys, law enforcement experts, legislators, many of whom have worked on these issues for many, many years, crime victims groups and others, and I want to thank everyone who was involved in its process. I want to say a special thanks to the San Diego County Sheriff Bill Gore and the San Diego County District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis for their efforts. We are joined in support by DAs from around California, including San Francisco, Los Angeles, and others, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, both of California's United States Senators, the Speaker, the Governor, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, crime victims groups, law enforcement groups, and tens of thousands of Californians who have signed petitions in support of this legislation. I also want to specifically thank the 55 members of the Assembly who are co-authors of this measure. In addition to this group that helped us develop it, we examined the efforts of other states. We reviewed current statute and studies. We worked hard to produce a targeted, focused bill on the most dangerous. Chelsea's Law has three main provisions. It takes an existing sex crime statute and strengthens it by adding a life without parole option for the most dangerous and most violent who commit a forcible sex crime against a child, if that offense includes an aggravating factor. Earlier this week, we took two amendments, one of which was a technical change, removing traumatic condition as an aggravating factor. The second amendment brings our bill in compliance with the recent Supreme Court ruling by removing juvenile offenders from the life without parole option. AB 1844 also provides for lifetime parole for sex offenses against children under the age of 14. While all sex crimes are awful, these crimes against such young victims are a red flag the perpetrator is capable of much, much worse. The final piece of our law is safe zones. Current law provides that sex offenders cannot live within 2,000 feet of a park where children congregate. However, there's nothing in the law that says that same offender can't sit in that park all day long. It doesn't make any sense. Chelsea's Law fixes this problem by creating safe or exclusionary zones from felony sex offenders in parks where children congregate. We believe the combination of increased sentencing, enhanced parole and oversight, and the creation of safe zones will better protect children and provide comfort and safety for all of those in our community. Prison and parole are for those we're afraid of, not those we're mad at, and our bill is aimed at those we fear are likely to be a danger to reoffend and harm our children. AB 1844 ensures a prioritization on focus on the worst offenders, those who target children in a violent sexual manner, and I'd respectfully request your aye vote.
Ms. Salas. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker first. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support of AB 1844, Chelsea's Law, and I want to thank the author for bringing it forward. As we know, the safety of our citizens must be the absolute highest priority for every level of government in California. The death of Chelsea King was a tragedy, but the tragedy is compounded by the fact that her death was preventable. Clearly, California needs to look to ways to increase supervision of parolees, to prevent anyone else from being victimized, and to ensure that the punishment for those offenses is appropriate to protect our communities. especially our children, from dangerous offenders. This measure addresses that priority. We've already taken steps to strengthen the supervision of parolees by transferring some of the savings from the Assembly's belt-tightening to the Sex Offender Management Board to implement dynamic risk assessment for sex offenders to make sure we are not releasing dangerous individuals back into society. This was a positive step, but it's only one step. We need to ensure that our laws provide every tool to law enforcement and every deterrent to predators. This bill is a major step forward in that effort. I want to thank the author for bringing it forward, and I look forward to continuing to work with him to ensure that every Californian is safe. We cannot undo the tragedy of Chelsea King's death, but we can honor her memory by working to ensure that we prevent future tragedies from occurring. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I hope we have your full attention here, because I think that this is one of the most significant bills that we're going to work on this session. And I rise today in strong support of Chelsea's Law. As a mother and a grandmother, I know that nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important than protecting our children. And Chelsea's Law will do just that, protect our kids. It will fix a flaw in the one-strike law that was passed 2 decades ago. It will fix the flaws that allowed sexual predators to take the lives of 2 young girls in San Diego County, Chelsea King and Amber DuBois. And it will fix the law that cost the lives of many of children throughout our state. Too many children. Too many mothers and fathers, like the Kings, that I could barely stand to look in their faces and see the pain that they were suffering. None of us could imagine the horror that those children went through. And it shouldn't happen again. It will ensure that the supervision of sexual predators is no longer entrusted to an overworked bureaucracy, but it will put those to prey on children away for life. Colleagues, this is not a hard vote. We can't afford to maintain the status quo. For these predators, there is no rehabilitation. We must put them away so that they can no longer threaten our children. Please join me in supporting AB 1844. Thank you, Nathan, for the leadership that you've provided on this, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a San Diegan, I applaud Assemblyman Fletcher's efforts on this. I've seen him throughout the community working to gain bipartisan support. I congratulate my colleagues on the fact that they see this as an important public safety bill, not a partisan measure. Our system obviously failed Amber and Chelsea's parents, and Amber and Chelsea. This is a fix to that system, and it is important because it is a narrow, very targeted fix to the system that respects the rights of those who are not in the category that we are seeking to prevent from ever committing these types of crimes again. The one-strike provision in this bill may be controversial, but it is smart and it is targeted, and it manages a particularly violent class of predators that we have to prevent from repeating this type of offense. It keeps our children safer. That is the bottom line. The reforms in this bill represent a bipartisan effort of a coalition of public safety and victims groups, and will strengthen the ability of government to protect its people. Again, I ask for your support, and again, I commend Assemblyman Fletcher.
Fletcher, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank everyone who's spoken in support, who's joined us in support, everyone who has helped us during this process by making suggestions and recommendations. What's happened is every parent's worst nightmare. It's every parent's worst fear. The primary responsibility of government is the protection of the innocent. It's protection of our children. And I think this measure goes a long way towards ensuring we have a system that better protects our children. And I'd respectfully request your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 65, no 0. Measure passes.